Cool, and welcome into this video. I would like to answer a question which I received from one of my clients. If one can be able to issue a second amendment of tax return and after doing the first amendment. So this is the second correction of the amendment which you had already done. So this is allowable in Kenya, but you need to submit some supportive document. But to verify this, I have a case where I did an amendment tax return and I received a principal tax or tax liability of around 7,000, and I want to correct this one, and I show you how you can do the second amendment of your the first amendment of your income tax. So what you're supposed to do, basically just enter your PIN here, then click continue. Then you need to come here, do a simple mathematical computation, which is giving me 90. Then you need to log in. After logging in, I would recommend you first come to where we have file returns. Then select resident individual and then click next. Then I had already file return for this period. So I will not recommend using the auto-populated ITR return. I would recommend using a new Excel sheet, which is here. So just click above it and download it. After doing that, I'll get back into my file explorer and the downloads. I'll click above that Excel sheet. I'll come to where we have properties and I'll unblock the Excel sheet. I'll hit apply and hit OK. Then I'll open the sheet. Then I'll click above it. Then what I'll need to do, I need first to extract it. So let me first do the extract all. So before you do that, please remember to unblock the Excel sheet or the zip file to avoid being blocked by macros. So just click extract. After doing that, I'll come here and click above the Excel sheet and choose to open it with Excel. Please don't open it with WPS Office since you experience a macros problem. Then I will open the Excel sheet. So after opening the Excel sheet, I will enable the contact to be edited. Okay. So after that, now we shall populate this form manually to ensure we make close to minimal errors. So I'll come here and I'll be guided by PIN and form to ensure I enter everything correctly. I will enter my PIN here. So let me copy my PIN and enter it in these cells. So this is my PIN. I'll come here and choose the type of return is amended. But now we are doing the amendment for the second time. So I choose the year. So it is 1st January 2025 to 31st December 2025. Then do we have any other income rather than the employment income? In my case, no. So all of this I have already filled, so it is no. So from there, bank details, KRA already have them. That's why you can notice that this section are hidden and they are non-editable. So come to the employment. So under the employment, what we need to do, we need to fill the employer's PIN, the PIN of the employer, which we can easily get back from our PIN and form, which is here. I'll just copy it and get it to my Excel sheet and enter the PIN here. Then I'll enter the employer name so I can get back to my PIN and form and ensure I capture the employer's name correctly here. So you just come here, copy the name and then bring it here. So there are some hidden section here which I need to include. Then I'll hit enter. So and come here and enter the gross pay. So the gross pay we can get it easily from the PIN and form, which is totaling to amount of 511,200, which is here. So just copy the amount here. Let me copy the amount and bring it here. 200. Allowance and benefit from employment other than kind housing, I don't have, so I put value 0. Net value of housing, I already don't have, so I put the net value of 0. Then you can see the total employment income is totaling for 511,200. So I don't have to do any other adjustment there. So other income with final tax, I don't have them. So that one include lump sum, gratuity, pension, arrears, qualifying interest. So these are interest which qualifies, and qualifying dividends. So this is dividends which originate from SACCOs and others. So I'll just continue. I don't have them because you need to enter the gross amount and the tax deducted. So come to M, details of payee, and include some information. I'll just click the drop down arrow and enter the PIN of the employer. I also need to enter the name of the employer, so I can enter the name of the employer from this section rather than going back to the PIN and form. This is the simplified method to do it. So I'll come here and get back here and enter the name of the employer again here. So I'll enter the taxable salary here. So the taxable salary is the salary which is subject to tax. So the taxable salary is here, which is amount to, so that is the chargeable salary, but in some instances it is called the taxable salary. So it is here. This is a salary which is subject to tax. I just come here and enter it. I'll get back to my sheets and input it here. I also need to enter the taxable pay on taxable salary. So to get the taxable pay on taxable salary, what we need to do, you need to get back to my PIN and form. So I need to take the summation of monthly relief and pay. So the summation of monthly relief and pay, so I need to get to my calculator and show you that simple computation. So the taxable amount on the pay is this amount, which is here, this amount. So I can copy it and take them to my calc. So this amount added, we add this amount of monthly personal relief, which is here, which is here. So let me get back to my calculator, and which is here. Then we need to enter this amount to where we have the section where we have, let me get back to the sheets. Let me come back to the Excel sheets, to the section where we have tax payable on taxable salary. So we'll come and enter this amount here. So just remove the commas, the comma which is here. Then I'll come here and enter the pay amount. So the pay amount. So the pay amount is totaling to this amount, which is total tax collected from your income. That is the pay. Then I'll come here and enter it here in the Excel sheets. So move this 0 here and this comma. So hit enter. So the difference between tax payable on taxable salary and amount of tax deducted pay, it should give you your annual personal relief. But you can notice that my annual personal relief is exceeding the required annual personal relief because I was given affordable housing levy relief of this amount. So to continue, we shall head direct to the tax computation. At the tax computation, you come here. We need now to adjust the tax computation area. We need to adjust it with the defined pension contribution based on my tax here, on my P9 form. you can notice that my defined pension contribution, which we usually use the actual value, which is the row of this value, is 30,276, 30,276, which is here, 30,276, 30,276, which is the amount we need to input here. So we need to come here, enter this value 276. Ensure you have entered everything correctly to avoid a lot of troubles. But so when you are doing an amendment to reduce a tax liability, also you need to come here and offer for affordable housing levy. So for affordable housing levy, as we know, it is 1.5 of our gross pay. So the 1.5 of our gross pay, what do we need to do? So we need to get back into our calculator. So and take 0.015% of our gross pay, which in our P9 form is giving us 511,200. 511,200. Then we are getting the amount of tax we are supposed to pay. It is 76.68. So this amount need to be overstated with the amount of relief which were given in our P9 form of 1150. So giving us an amount of 88.18. So this is 88. This is giving us an amount of 88.18. So enter it here. So we also need to do the same for the social health insurance fund, which is SHIF, which is 2.75 of our annual gross pay, or of our monthly gross pay. So we need to take, let me get back to my calculator. I need to take 0.0275 multiplied by 511,200. So give me a value of 14,058. So let me copy this value. Let me copy this value and come and enter that value here. So remove these commas and click enter. So after doing that, I come and check my tax liability. So I'm supposed to pay for this amount of tax. So with no much ado, I'll just validate the sheets. So I'll wait the sheet to validate so that we can offer a second amendment for the tax which I had already filed and see if it can go through. Because I have received that query from my client and I needed to be sure of what we'll be doing. So I have decided to also do it for my client, where I did an amendment and the original tax which I was trying to adjust was not adjusted by the amendment which I had already done. So I find it first possible to first do it on my own. So let me save this document and call it amended, and then I'll save it at my download for ease of access. Then we should get back to the sheet. So you can see that the sheet are all ready to be uploaded. Do you want to generate and upload the file? I'll say yes. So when you say yes, what you should be careful, you should check the date, the time, and the when the zip file is being saved in your device. So it is saved as the document. So the date and the time. So we just click OK. Then I'll get back into my KRA website. I'll come to where we have return. I'll come here, we have file amended return. I'll come here. Come to where we have income tax resident. Then I'll click next. I'll come here and choose the tax period, which is from 1st January 2025 to December. I'm told that the original has already been amended. You cannot file an amendment return again. So I have noticed that issue. So let me come here, tax resident, next, enter the tax period. So don't know why, even if I have amended, the original has already been amended. You cannot amend the return file again. So we can get into a conclusion, but that this year you cannot be able to amend your tax return twice, so it is restricted to once. So we have done it as an experiment, but I thought last year it was possible, but this year have turned out to be complex to do it. So thank you for watching, and have a nice time.